Hey friends, tonight let's explore the kind of wedding vow you probably didn't see coming unless your idea of romance includes potatoes. You're standing on a cold Andean morning. Mist clings to your hair, and somewhere beyond the nearest ridge a conch shell sounds a hollow, echoing note. That's your signal. Not to run, but to gather. Because tonight, oddly enough, you'll discover that love, at least in ancient Peru, is root deep. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. Drop your location and the time you're listening in the comments. I always love knowing where in the world you're falling asleep. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking through a village made of earth and stone. The roofs are thatched. Llamas blink lazily in the distance. And right in the center of this quiet little world, a fire pit. Around it, baskets woven with patience overflow with potatoes. Some are red and knobbly. Others are dark purple with flecks of gold. One looks like it's smiling at you. No, really? Some varieties grow like that, and here that's no accident. Because tonight is not a feast, not yet. Tonight is a promise. A young couple stands near the fire. No priest, no podium, just them holding small potatoes in their hands. They exchange them wordlessly. The villagers watch. There are no rings, only roots. The vows aren't spoken, they're planted, quite literally. They kneel, dig a small patch of earth, and press their potatoes in. Together. This is how love takes root in both a symbolic and extremely agricultural sense. You see, in ancient Andean societies, long before the Incas even carved out their empires, potatoes weren't just food. They were memory wealth and spiritual anchors. Giving someone a potato was like handing them a piece of your story, and in weddings it was everything. Here's the first historical fact for the night. The Quechua and Aymara peoples cultivated thousands of varieties of potatoes, yes, thousands. Each one had its own name, taste, texture, and even emotional symbolism. Some were good for marriage, some were good for funerals. Others were used in ceremonies to ward off jealousy. Potatoes had social roles. Imagine that at your next dinner party. Ah yes, please pass me the emotionally stable variety. Now for a quirky detail. There was one potato in particular called the puka chuki, or red gold, that was said to bring harmony to couples. But it tasted awful, like biting into sour dust. Still, people gave it anyway because love, like tubers, isn't always sweet. And here's the open question historians still ponder. Were these potato rituals purely symbolic, or did they actually influence land ownership, family bonds, and inter-village alliances? We have archaeological traces of potato offerings buried next to bodies, but no written records, just a root trail of meaning we're still unearthing. Let's rewind a little. Imagine growing up in a village like this. Your childhood isn't filled with toys or apps, it's filled with potatoes. You sort them by shape, dry them on rocks, help your grandmother smear them with ash to preserve them through winter. Your favorite is the little blue one with white freckles. It looks like it's giggling. You name it after your crush. You carry it in your pocket like a secret. Yes, ancient childhood romance, 70% imagination, 30% tuber. Then you're older. You fall in love for real. Not because someone tells you to, but because someone laughs when you drop an entire basket of potatoes and they help you pick them up without saying a word. The romance is in the silence and the dust on their hands, in the way they gently brush the dirt off the one you call lucky. When your families approve, there's no ring shopping. There's no talk of florists. Instead, you're both taken to the high terraces above the village where the oldest women in your families grow sacred varieties. The elders present you each with 3 potatoes, one raw, one roasted, one fermented. And yes, that third one smells exactly as weird as you think. You must choose one to give. The roasted one means comfort. The raw one means honesty. The fermented one means, well, let's say long-term challenge. Pick wisely. When you exchange them, your choice says everything. Not just what kind of partner you want to be, but what kind of journey you expect. The ceremony ends with planting not just the gift potatoes, but new ones. You plant your future literally in rows. Next year's harvest will grow beside this moment. The idea is simple and beautiful. Love should be something you tend, not something you wear. Now let's sprinkle in a few late-night giggles, ancient matchmaking advice, swipe right, plant left. The only thing ghosting meant back then was, you forgot to bring the fermented one. And of course, love at first bite. You sit by the fire now. The ceremony is ended, but the scent of baked earth and smoked herbs fills the air. The potatoes given, planted, promised, and received now live in the soil and in memory. A few villagers begin singing. Softly. The tune isn't familiar, but the rhythm is heartbeat slow, and you feel it in your bones. Not just the chill, but the warmth. The kind of warmth that comes from knowing something ancient and oddly specific, that in the Andes, love isn't fleeting. It's starchy, sacred, and occasionally smells a little weird. The fire dims. Someone throws in a handful of herbs. The smoke rises with a crackle. You inhale deeply. You're not from here, but somehow you understand. In this world, a potato isn't just dinner, it's devotion. You wake up early the next morning. Not to birdsong or alarm clocks, but to the slow shuffle of feet on dirt and the scent of steamed tubers wafting through the morning mist. Someone's boiling potatoes for breakfast. Again. But here, repetition is not boring, it's a ritual. And this morning, it's not just any meal. It's the start of something called Yanapanakui, a kind of mutual help tradition where neighbors gather to work one another's land in rotating turns. You step outside. The village is already humming softly, no one's shouting. There are no horns or deadlines, but there's movement, purpose, kindness in motion. You're handed a cup of warm mate de coca, and someone, maybe your new spouse, passes you a wooden tool and points to a row of soil. It's your turn to dig. The potatoes planted during yesterday's wedding aren't for harvesting anytime soon, but there are older plants nearby ready to be unearthed. It's not hard work, but it is sacred. Every tuber pulled from the earth is met with a pause, a gentle brushing of soil, and sometimes a small whispered thanks. Here's your common historical fact. The Andean practice of Yanapanakui wasn't just agricultural, it was social glue. Everyone participated, from elders to children. It wasn't charity, it wasn't labor. It was reciprocity, quietly offered and gratefully received. And yes, it usually included food, especially potatoes. People brought their own baskets, tools, and songs. There were no wages, just a shared sense that your time would come too, that next week or next month others would come to dig your field. You crouch in the soil beside someone's grandmother. She shows you how to tell if a potato is ready. It wiggles when the earth is loose, she says in Quechua, or maybe with a smile and a nudge. You're not sure which. Either way, you understand. You pull one up, it's small and heart-shaped. She laughs. Someone teases you from across the field, that one's for lovers. You pocket it. Later, under the shade of a small clay awning, you rest. Your legs ache pleasantly. The village feeds everyone from a communal pot of chuño, a freeze-dried potato stew. It's not fancy, but it's warm, filling, and earthy. You blow on a spoonful. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a modern voice says this could use salt, but here it's perfect. Let's talk about chuño for a moment. It's your quirky fact of the day. Chuño isn't just a dish, it's a technique. To make it, potatoes are frozen overnight in the high-altitude cold, then stomped on barefoot during the day to squeeze out the moisture. Then frozen again, then stomped again. Repeat. After several rounds, you get something like a rock-hard preserved potato puck that can last for years, like apocalypse-level longevity. So yes, some of the potatoes you're eating today might have been made before you were engaged. The cultural meaning: endurance, preparation, trust. Chuño isn't about fresh flavor, it's about surviving winter. It's about storing love, storing memory, storing calories for the hard months. You don't just eat it, you rely on it. And here's your scholarly debate for the night. Historians have long wondered how much Andean cuisine was driven by necessity versus choice. Did chuño become beloved because it was practical or because people genuinely preferred it over fresh potatoes? Was its ritual value shaped by taste or by sheer survival? The answer, as usual, is probably yes. You wipe your hands on your woven belt. A few children run past, laughing, their cheeks smudged with dirt and potato skin. One is carrying a tiny woven doll that looks suspiciously like a potato with arms. Potato dolls were a real thing, by the way. Not just for play, sometimes left at household shrines to bring fertility or luck. A child might even name one after a sibling or ancestor, which is both sweet and a little unsettling. Imagine your great-uncle being reincarnated as a knobby vegetable. In this culture, food wasn't just fuel, it was family. You're invited into a home. One room, warm walls darkened with years of smoke. A pot hangs over a fire, bubbling gently. There's something comforting about the simplicity of it all. The only decor is a few dried herbs, some clay figurines, and yes, more potatoes. Painted ones, decorated with beads. Some smile, others frown. It's an emotional tuber gallery. You sit with the elders. They don't say much, but they offer you food. You eat in silence, which feels respectful, not awkward. Every bite is slow, deliberate. It's not about fullness, it's about presence. Then someone brings out a flute, not a shiny metal concert instrument, just a carved bone pipe with 3 holes. The sound it makes is soft, reedy, and oddly sleepy, like a lullaby made of wind. You lean back. Your belly is warm. Your fingers still smell faintly of roasted skin and earth. Outside, the light begins to shift. Long golden bands stretch across the mountains. A llama grunts gently. Someone hums. And you think maybe this is the real romance. Not the ceremony, not the symbolism. But this sharing labor, sharing stew, sharing silence. And knowing that tomorrow someone will show up to dig your garden too. Now for a few laughs before bed, chuño, the original energy bar that tastes like cold commitment. Stomping potatoes barefoot sounds romantic until you realize you're stepping on tomorrow's dinner. And somewhere a potato with arms is judging your life choices. You head back to your little room. There's no bed, just a thick wool mat and a woven blanket that smells of sheep and sun. You wrap yourself up. The fire outside is dimmed. The stars above are brighter than you remember. And beneath your head, tucked gently in a cloth bag, is the heart-shaped potato from earlier. You didn't mean to keep it. But somehow, it feels right. Tonight you sleep not just in a village, but inside a story. A slow one. One rooted in dirt and laughter and traditions older than stone. You're not just dreaming, you're growing. You wake up before the sun this time, not because of noise, but because your dreams smell like roasted herbs. Somewhere outside, someone is already boiling something. You hear the low bubbling sound and the soft rhythmic tapping of stone on stone. It's not alarming. It's, comforting. You step out into the morning fog, and this time you're invited not to the field, but to the hearth. Today, it's your turn to cook. The kitchen here is a 3-stone fire circle set into packed earth. There's no stove, no sink, but everything has a place. Bundles of herbs hang from the rafters, and bowls of dried potato varieties line the low shelves. There's something reverent about it, like walking into a temple made for simmering. You're handed a bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside are dried potatoes, herbs, and a pinch of ash salt, an ancient flavoring made from wood ash. You stir it into the pot like an old spell. Here's your common historical fact. Ancient Andean cooks didn't use salt the way we do today. Salt was precious. Instead, they used ash from certain trees to add flavor and preserve nutrients. This technique made even the blandest tuber sing, though not everyone agreed on the melody. The dish you're making is called sanku, a ritual porridge made with grains, potatoes, herbs, and sometimes llama fat. But not today. Today it's a vegetarian version because this meal isn't just food. It's for the Waka sacred earth spirits who don't care much for meat. You help ladle the thick, fragrant porridge into small bowls made of hollowed-out gourds. One is set aside for the elders. One is placed on a small stone altar outside. And the rest is for anyone who helped in the fields yesterday. The rule is simple: if you worked, you eat. As you stir the pot, you notice the potatoes have changed. Yesterday's were hearty. Today's are delicate, almost translucent. You ask about them and someone points to a basket labeled Kuilu Imila, the golden daughter. A ceremonial potato, yellow-fleshed and quick to bruise. It's fragile, precious. Often cooked for spiritual offerings or shared on sacred days. Here's your quirky detail: the golden daughter was sometimes buried in small shrines during the solstice to ask for rain. And if it sprouted underground, it meant the gods had heard you. If not, well, you waited. Sometimes you planted another. Patience was a virtue, especially when your gods had farming schedules. This brings us to tonight's academic mystery. Historians and ethnobotanists still debate how many of these ceremonial potato types were functional crops versus symbolic relics. Were they bred for yield or for meaning? Were some never meant to be eaten at all? You serve the sanku with quiet pride. It's humble, it's hearty. And people thank you with nods and silence. A child taps their spoon twice on the bowl before eating. Another picks out every herb and lines them on a leaf, then eats them one by one. A slow, methodical joy. Later that day, you're led to a different kind of kitchen. A cold one. Inside a shaded room, women are drying slices of potatoes on stone slabs. Thin, almost paper-like. These are for lipta, a kind of potato leaf chew, usually mixed with lime or ash and held in the mouth like a soft lozenge. It's more than food, it's a mild stimulant, a symbol of conversation, and sometimes a courtship tool. Yes, in ancient Peru, you could woo someone with a potato chew. You're shown how to prepare it. The slices must be even, the drying must be slow. And if you want to send one as a gift, you mark it with a dot of dye, a signal that you're interested in more than just agricultural partnerships. So naturally you try it. And yes, it tastes like dried soil and herbs and maybe a hint of regret, but it's honest. The sun dips low and you're invited to a story fire. This isn't a ceremony. No one is dancing. Just people sitting together, carving, weaving, or mending tools while one elder speaks. Not loudly, just loud enough. He tells a story of the first potato spirit who fell in love with a mountain. She buried herself just to be close to it. Every time someone harvests a tuber, they're disturbing a dream. So be gentle. You wonder if your heart-shaped potato from yesterday was part of that dream. You wonder if you're dreaming now. Now for your sleepy smiles, potato courtship swipe with a side of ash. Golden daughter sounds poetic until you accidentally mash her. And yes, love can be served lukewarm and chewy. You lie down under a canopy of soft reed mats. Someone has left a small offering by your pillow, a dried slice of lipta with a tiny red dot. You smile. In this place, love doesn't shout, it simmers. And sometimes it's wrapped in cloth and shared by the spoonful. The fire outside cracks once, then settles. You sleep beside legends and legumes. You wake to the sound of whispering water. A tiny canal barely the width of your arm trickles past the edge of the path outside. It wasn't there yesterday. Or maybe you simply didn't notice. That happens a lot now. You're slowing down, seeing more, dreaming with your eyes open. This morning you're headed somewhere new, the Amunas. Ancient water channels hidden in the hills designed not to deliver water, but to delay it. To gently guide it into the earth so it seeps back out months later, feeding fields and springs in seasons to come. You walk with an elder and 2 children. They each carry a tiny bundle of coca leaves and a few stones. You carry curiosity. and a thin reed basket filled with oca, a tangy, colorful tuber related to potatoes. Apparently, today's snack is trail-based. Here's your historical fact. The Inca and pre-Inca peoples developed complex hydrological systems high in the Andes, not just for irrigation, but for water storage, timing, and ritual. The Amunas were early examples of what today might be called slow water engineering. They worked with the landscape, not against it. You stopped to place a leaf by a small spring along with a few grains of cornmeal. Not an offering exactly, more like acknowledgement. A thank you to the invisible infrastructure that's still humming beneath your feet. The trail is quiet, then laughter. The children have peeled one of the oca tubers and it's bright pink and oddly shaped. It looks frankly like a toe. They chase each other with it, chanting something about toe snacks. The elder sighs. You try not to laugh, but fail. And here's your quirky detail. Oca was one of the few tubers that could grow at higher altitudes than potatoes. It tasted sweet, almost fruity, but only after being left in the sun for a few days. Straight from the ground, sour enough to make a llama wince. So yes, there was a time when people used sunlight as seasoning. Midway through the climb, you stop to rest at a stone bench. Someone has carved a spiral into the rock, not a symbol, a diagram. It shows the movement of water from glacier to stream to soil to spring. A 1,000-year-old infographic. You chew a bit of coca as gently instructed and the bitterness fades into calm. The air feels thinner here, but not hostile, just quiet. The elder tells you this spiral is called Yakumayu, the water serpent. It winds through every village unseen but alive. When it's angry, the earth dries. When it sleeps too long, floods come. To keep it balanced, people must offer it food, not bread or meat, but intention. There's debate about this among scholars, of course. And here's your academic question for the night. Were water offerings truly religious acts or encoded environmental knowledge? Did the rituals preserve myth or hydrology or both? Because here's the thing, those offerings coincided suspiciously well with times and places that needed them most. The water serpent knew how to schedule. You eat your now sweetened oca with a bit of soft queso fresco wrapped in the leaf. The combination is strange, creamy, sour-sweet, like yogurt and rhubarb had a forest romance. You take another bite. When you arrive at the Amuna, there is nothing to see. Just a narrow groove cut into rock and the faintest sound of trickling beneath your feet. But the elder smiles. He hands you a small clay dish and says, "Feed it." You look around. He nods toward your basket. You crumble a bit of osei, add some herbs, and sprinkle a few coca leaves in. Then you gently pour it into the groove. The water doesn't carry it away, it just absorbs it. The children watch solemnly. One whispers, "Now it will remember us in the dry months." Later, as you walk back, the air feels softer. Or maybe you've become lighter. Either way, you notice the sound of footfalls on dry grass, the smell of wild mint crushed beneath sandals, the distant call of a bird that doesn't want to be seen. You pass a series of stone piles, mini cairns, some topped with shells, others with carved potatoes, tiny faces scratched in. A joke, a prayer, a dare. There's one with a oxa shaped like a nose. You don't ask, you just add a small pebble and move on. Now for tonight's 3 sleepy giggles. Ancient engineers slowing down water and speeding up your respect. Okay, the only food that improves by napping in the sun. Toe tuber is definitely not a good band name, but here we are. You return to the village at dusk. Someone hands you a bowl of warm broth and a thick woolen shawl. You sit near a window watching the mist rise over the mountains. A flute plays somewhere nearby, soft off-key, perfect. And you think there's power in slowness, in letting things seep, in trusting that what you give today will nourish someone tomorrow. You sleep with your feet pointed uphill just slightly as advised. It helps the dreams reach the head faster, someone told you. You're not sure if it's science myth or just a nice excuse to angle the mattress. Either way, it works. Today begins with smoke. Not the alarming kind, but the cozy, woodsy, someone's making breakfast kind. You follow your nose to a hearth tucked between two terraces where an elderly woman is gently roasting something flat and golden on a slab of black stone. It crackles softly. She flips it with her fingers, no spatula, no gloves. Just decades of practice and nerves seemingly made of lava. You sit nearby. She nods toward the fire but doesn't speak. Then she holds up a slice of something round, thin and golden, a chuño pancake, or something close to it. It's more like a chewy flatbread made from freeze-dried potatoes, water, and ashes. Here's your historical fact of the day. Chuño has been a staple in the Andes for over 1,000 years. It was created by exposing potatoes to freezing night air, trampling them underfoot and drying them in the sun. The result, a lightweight, long-lasting, sponge-dry tuber that could feed armies and withstand droughts. It didn't taste like much, but it could survive almost anything, including being stomped on by children or accidentally dropped into a llama trough. You take a bite. It's smoky, firm, earthy, like chewing on history and enjoying it. She offers you another piece. This one is thicker, studded with something green. You ask what it is. She replies simply, muña, a local mint. It cuts through the chuño's stubbornness like gossip in a quiet room. Now here's your quirky detail. In some Andean villages, children learned how to make chuño by being given potatoes, cold nights, and lots of freedom to stomp around. Some called it dance preserving, others just called it messy. But the tradition remained. In fact, one community still holds a chuño festival every June. There's music, freezing, stomping, and yes, a potato beauty contest. The prettiest freeze-dried potato wins a ribbon and eternal bragging rights. Today, your task is to help prepare provisions for a journey. Not yours, someone else's. A group is heading to a nearby village for a harvest ritual, and you've been invited to help pack their food. You're handed a pouch made from woven alpaca wool and shown how to fill it with dried foods, chuño-dried corn, sun-dried beans, herbs, and a few slices of air-cured llama meat. It smells like a mixture of hope and endurance. The woman teaching you smiles when you fold the pouch correctly on the first try. "You've done this before," she says. "You haven't. But your hands seem to remember something, maybe from a dream, maybe from part 2. Time feels flexible here. As the group prepares to leave, there's a short ceremony. Nothing grand, just a simple gathering. A circle of coca leaves on the ground, a handful of smoke offered skyward, a shared sip of chicha, fermented corn beer. Sharp, cloudy, and warm. And here comes your academic debate for the evening. Historians argue over whether chuño was a pragmatic invention or a ritual food first. Was it born out of necessity or from reverence for the season? Some suggest both. Others argue that its preservation process was too symbolic to be purely about survival. The debate continues. Somewhere, probably in a conference room filled with stale coffee and animated PowerPoints, you send the group off with a nod. Then you return to the fire where the elderly woman is now making a sweet version of the flatbread, this time with a drizzle of miel de caña, a thick syrup made from sugarcane. It's rare and saved for special occasions. You lick a bit off your fingers. It tastes like burnt caramel and aged sunlight. She tells you a story. Her mother once shared a tale of a wandering spirit who traded chuño for secrets. The better the chuño, the deeper the secret. Once someone gave him a golden potato and he told them when to plant their crops so they would never fail. Then he vanished. You ask what happened to the farmer. She shrugs. He got bored, started trading secrets for cheese instead. Now for tonight's trio of gentle chuckles. Chuño, the only snack that survives frostbite and interpretive dance. Potato pageants, because even tubers deserve tiaras. That syrup sticky enough to sweeten your dreams and glue shut your journal. You head to your sleeping spot early tonight. Not because you're tired, just full of stories, starch, and smoke. Someone leaves you a bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside are 2 chuño biscuits and a tiny drawing of a smiling potato wearing a crown. No note, no explanation, just a quiet reminder in this world, even the most trampled upon things can be crowned. You fall asleep wondering if you'll dream of potato royalty again. The morning begins with a whisper of mist. It curls around your ankles like a sleepy cat as you step out onto the terrace. The sky isn't ready yet, it's still deciding between gold and gray. But someone's already up. Down the slope you spot a figure tending to rows of what look like miniature green suns. Round, leafy, proud. You walk closer and the scent hits you fresh, sharp herbal. Not quite mint, not quite citrus. The farmer greets you with a nod and offers a leaf to chew. It's bitter, then floral, then something you can't name. Like if a basil plant fell in love with a pine tree. Yeah, but these, he says, are for the soup. That's your only instruction for the day, so naturally you follow him. Today's historical anchor, the Quechua and Aymara peoples cultivated not only potatoes and corn, but also hundreds of herbs for use in cooking, medicine, and ritual. Many of these were local, never exported, never named in European texts, never bottled. But they flavored everything from stews to stories. You enter a sunken cooking pit lined with black stones. Smoke drifts lazily from a hole above, and nearby someone is chopping oca, mashua, and other tubers into tiny cubes. There's a basket of dried potatoes beside them. Of course, the ever-present chuno. But today you're focused on the herbs. There's huacatay, a dark green leaf with a licorice finish. Pico, sharp and strange, used to calm the belly. And something with a name you can't pronounce, which everyone just calls soup flower. It looks like a star and smells like time's flamboyant cousin. Now for your quirky fact, some Andean soups were served in layers, not stirred. Each ingredient placed in order so the eater would experience the dish as a timeline from root to leaf, earth to sky. Some historians believe this mirrored spiritual cosmology. Others think it was just a way to keep the herbs from getting soggy. The cook hands you a gourd of something cloudy and greenish. You sip. It tastes like vegetable tea mixed with a hint of forest. Then it kicks. A little spicy, a little sharp. You cough. They laugh. That means it's working. You help stir a huge clay pot with a stick so tall it doubles as a walking staff. The stew thickens. The smell deepens. Time slows. Then someone brings out the potatoes, not just any potatoes. These are heart-shaped. No, really. One is almost perfectly shaped like a Valentine's Day card. Another like an awkward cartoon liver. You hold one up. Wedding potatoes, someone says. And there it is, tonight's academic whisper. Anthropologists have recorded wedding rituals in parts of the Andes where couples exchanged symbolic foods, and potatoes often played a central role. But here's the scholarly puzzle: were the shapes natural and found, or carved and cultivated? Some say it was luck. Others suspect early forms of selective breeding. Either way, it worked. The message: here's a root that will feed you through anything. The stew is ready. People gather. Some sit on woven mats, others on rocks. A cloth is spread and bowls made of polished gourd shells are passed around. Everyone is offered 3 scoops, one for the earth, one for the ancestors, and one for the belly. Yours comes with a garnish, a single herb leaf placed just so. Like a green comma. You sip slowly. It's hot, comforting, a little bitter, a little wild. Like a song that changes keys halfway through but somehow still works. You ask someone about the wedding potatoes again. They smile and pull a small cloth from their pouch. Inside are 3 mini potatoes tied together with a strand of llama wool. A keepsake. Given to them by their grandmother on their wedding day. You can boil them, they say, but then you'll forget who you are. You decide not to. 3 soft chuckles for tonight. Herbal layering, culinary art, or ancient way of stalling dinner guests. Wedding potatoes, because rings are expensive and roots last longer. Soup flour now available in no stores near you. As the sun dips, the mist returns, this time in golden form. The light scatters across the terrace, hitting the herb leaves like glitter on moss. The cook hums softly. Someone plays a flute that's slightly off-key but somehow perfect. You lie down beside a low stone wall, belly warm, breath slow. You can still taste the soup on your tongue, bitter, sweet, remembered. You sleep dreaming of potato hearts and soup that tells stories in layers. You wake to footsteps, soft ones. Not hurried, not sneaky, just curious. Peeking over a woven blanket, you spot a child crouched near your pack. She's poking at the cloth-wrapped chunyo bundle from last night. When she sees you stir, she doesn't flinch. Instead, she lifts it and says, "This one's smiling." You sit up slowly, it usually does. She nods like that makes perfect sense, hands it back, and then holds up a second object, a worn clay figurine shaped like a potato with legs. Clearly handmade, definitely important. This, she says, is papakori, and that's how you meet your first potato god. Today's story starts with soil and spirits. The Incas, like many Andean people, saw the world as alive with mountains, rivers, and roots all holding souls. Potatoes weren't just crops. They were companions, protectors, even matchmakers. Papakori, the golden potato, was said to appear to those who treated the earth well and to sulk if you over-harvested. Some versions say he brought rain. Others say he gave love advice. He was, by all accounts, a root deity with surprisingly high emotional intelligence. The girl leads you to a tiny shrine at the edge of the village. It's nothing grand. Just a small stone niche filled with carved tubers, dried flowers, and a little bowl of quinoa. She tells you today is a quiet festival. Not loud like the harvest dances or rowdy like the solstice. This one is for asking the soil to stay kind. You're invited to help prepare the offerings. Someone hands you a spindle of alpaca yarn dyed in muddy reds and yellows. You wrap it into a simple braid and tie it around a fist-sized potato. That one apparently is the witness potato. It will stay at the shrine all season, watching the fields like a very starchy security guard. Tonight's quirky detail: in some regions, farmers used to bury decorated potatoes at the corners of their fields like protective charms. Sometimes these potatoes were painted, sometimes wrapped in cloth, and sometimes left plain to show humility. One farmer's record from the 1500s describes a potato wrapped in thread guarded by a small clay fox. Whether it worked against pests is unclear, but it definitely scared one Spanish chronicler enough to write 6 paragraphs about it. The ritual begins with music. Soft flutes. A rattle made from llama toenails, yes, really. And then silence. The villagers each place a small offering into a hollowed rock: beans, coca leaves, dried herbs. One man places a carved spoon. You offer your potato bundle. The girl standing beside you whispers, "He likes you." You believe her. Your historical fact tonight: the Incas maintained a vast network of terraced farms across the Andes, and their agricultural rituals were as strategic as they were spiritual. Rituals marked planting, tending, harvesting, and even composting. Potatoes, especially rare or unusually shaped ones, were often given ceremonial roles. Some were never eaten. Others were shared during sacred meals, their skins buried in sacred soil. Academic debate time: some scholars argue that these rituals were primarily ecological, designed to teach sustainable farming through myth. Others believe they were deeply cosmological, rooted in the Incas' belief in Pachamama, Earth Mother, and the balance of Aini reciprocity between humans and nature. Or maybe both. After all, what better way to teach composting than fear of disappointing a divine potato with feelings? 3 sleepy chuckles before dusk. Papakori, the original motivational spud. Witness potatoes because nothing says accountability like root surveillance. Llama toenail rattles not sold in music stores. Yet, as twilight falls, the shrine is covered with a woven cloth. The offerings stay. The people leave. But as you walk away, you swear you hear a low gurgle. Not wind, not animal, just satisfaction. Maybe the earth really does say thank you sometimes. You curl up under your blanket that night, warm, wondering if potatoes dream. And if they do, whether you made it into one, it's market day. You wake to the sound of wool, yes wool, because someone is brushing a llama outside your window. And the rustle of its fur sounds like someone gently erasing a chalkboard. A gentle knock. A woven basket appears in your hands, and inside is a strange trio, a pouch of dried herbs, a handful of orange berries, and naturally a tiny potato carved into the shape of a bird. You'll need these, says the voice outside. The market's old. Not big, not busy, just old. You arrive just after sunrise. There are only 8 stalls, each built from adobe and stone with roofs made from grass and intention. It doesn't look like much. But you're told that people have traded here for hundreds of years, possibly longer. Some of the stalls are for food, others for cloth. One is simply a stone table covered in little carved charms, some animals, some vegetables, and one that looks suspiciously like a tiny foot in a hat. You stop to ask the merchant what it is. She looks up with a grin. That's for good dreams after a long hike. Today's main fact, pre-Columbian Andean markets weren't just economic, they were social, spiritual, and diplomatic. The Quechua and Aymara people developed detailed systems of barter where goods were traded not just by value, but by relationship, seasonal need, and reciprocity. You didn't just buy things, you earned them through trust, which explains why the woman at the herb stall eyes you skeptically. You offer the pouch of herbs from your basket. She nods, then offers you a string of dried beans in return, not as food, but as currency. You're now part of the rhythm. As you wander, you hear snatches of old stories. A woman sells carved potato stamps for printing patterns on cloth. A man hands out tastings of fermented tuber juice, which he insists helps you speak to the mountain who's been lonely lately. You take a sip. It tastes like lemon meta mushroom, and they got married in vinegar. You smile politely. He gives you a second cup. Now for your quirky detail, in some Andean marketplaces it was traditional to bring a talking potato. This wasn't an actual talking vegetable probably, but a decorated tuber placed at your stall to speak for you. Its carvings or adornments represented your family, your status, or your needs. Some were painted with tiny faces. Others had llama hair glued on. You spot one today, bright red with a jagged smile. The vendor says it's for good luck. But don't touch. Talking potatoes are sacred gossipers. Back to the rhythm, you trade a handful of orange berries for a woven wristband. Someone trades you a flute for a story. You tell them about the time you tripped on a root and landed in a potato pit. They laugh. The deal is made. Now here's our academic musings. Some scholars believe Andean trade operated more like a gift economy than a market. The idea being that value came not from scarcity or demand, but from how well you contributed to the community's shared flow. Were potatoes valuable because they were rare or because they brought people together? A tricky question in a culture where one potato might feed a belly and another might carry your blessings to a wedding. Time for 3 jokes wrapped in cloth and handed over gently. Talking potatoes, the original customer service reps. Bartering stories for flutes because music and embarrassment have equal value. If your tuber has a hat, it probably outranks you. As the market winds down, you sit by a shaded wall. A woman shares a dish with you, flatbread made from quinoa and mashed root topped with something green and spicy. It tastes like lunch and legend at the same time. You hold the bird-shaped potato from your morning basket. A small boy eyes it longingly. Without a word, you hand it to him. He grins and runs off. Maybe he'll trade it, maybe he'll keep it, maybe he'll tell people it talks in its sleep. Either way, the market approves. You close your eyes against the sun. Stomach full, pockets lighter, heart a little heavier in a good way. Tomorrow, they say, is feast day. But tonight you rest. The sun climbs early as if it has somewhere important to be. You're already awake, shoes. Dusty arms wrapped in a woven shawl that smells faintly of toasted grain and smoke. People bustle quietly around you. Today is feast day, but it doesn't begin with eating. It begins with washing the stones. Yes, the stones. In the village plaza, dozens of smooth river stones are arranged in a spiral pattern. They're part of the ancient hearth used only once a year. Before any fire is lit or food prepared, the stones must be cleaned not for hygiene, but for memory. You're handed a scrub brush made from reeds and a small bowl of herbal water. Someone hums a steady tune. You follow suit. The smell of mint and clay fills the morning air. Today's core fact. Traditional Andean feasts, especially those honoring agricultural deities or seasonal transitions, often involved ritual cleaning. Stones, tools, even cooking pots were considered part of the ceremony, not just the logistics. Some households kept a special pukuya, wind-blown fire bowl used only for feast days. Once the stones are dry, they're stacked into a pyramid and topped with a flat pan. It's time to cook, but this isn't just one meal. It's many. Throughout the morning, dishes appear like spells. One elder is steaming potatoes with herbs inside an earthen pit. Another grinds corn beside a fire where flatbread puffs up like sleepy pillows. Someone ladles stew into tiny clay bowls painted with animals. Then comes the center of it all, oka mashwa. Uliko, 3 kinds of Andean tubers you've never seen before. They're jewel-toned, oddly shaped, and slightly sweet. One tastes like a carrot, and a cucumber had an awkward but successful date. You help carry platters. Everything smells of soil and sunshine. Time for our quirky detail. During certain Inca festivals, participants fasted for days beforehand. Not only to prepare spiritually, but also to make room for the sacred meal. And get this, some dishes were shared with the land itself. A portion of food was buried or placed at crossroads or given to nearby animals in case the ancestors were watching through them. You try not to make eye contact with the slightly suspicious guinea pig sitting near your bench. The meal begins with a silence, then laughter, then chewing. Your seatmate hands you a drink made of purple maize and cinnamon. It's both tangy and warm, like mulled wine's innocent cousin. You sip slowly, feeling time stretch. Jokes ripple through the crowd. If your potato smiles, you're blessed. If it laughs, you're in trouble. Never trust a stew that makes eye contact. That's not steam, it's the ancestors gossiping. Halfway through the meal, a small procession begins. Children carry baskets of potatoes to the plaza's center. Some are plain, some are painted. One has what looks like a tiny knit poncho. These are the vow potatoes. They'll be given to couples, to newlyweds, to families hoping for good harvests or good behavior. Each one carries a message, quiet, private, warm. Your historical question tonight: were these potato gifts symbolic or literal? Some scholars argue they were purely ceremonial, like handing someone a wedding card. Others believe they functioned as edible dowries, with certain rare potato varieties indicating wealth or status. A few even suggest that the condition of the potato, unblemished, oddly shaped, or sprouting, carried meanings too subtle for us to decode now. You watch as one couple holds their potato between them, grinning shyly. A grandmother nods approvingly. You think of all the things a potato can be: food, fuel, promise, memory. And here tonight, under string lanterns and soft stars, it becomes blessing. You lie down near the fire pit as embers glow. Someone places a potato near your hand, wrapped in wool. For you, they whisper, just in case. You close your eyes, full of root and ritual, and dream of spirals. The feast is over. But not really, because now it's time for what they call the potato walk. You're not sure what that means, but someone hands you a small sack of chuño and points toward the ridge. The path curves through wild quinoa patches, past moss-covered boulders that look suspiciously like sleeping alpacas. You're joined by a dozen others, all quiet, all carrying something potatoes mostly. Though one man has a basket of dried flowers and another holds a flute carved with spiral patterns. You hike in silence for a while, footsteps crunching on dry grass. Today's historical fact. In many parts of ancient Peru, processions weren't reserved for royalty or religion. Everyday villagers held walking rituals tied to planting, rain-wishing, or even memory itself. They believed that walking with food, especially sacred food, reconnected people to land, to ancestry, and to each other. Your destination today is a shrine built into a hillside. Not a building exactly, just 3 stones in a triangle forming a natural bowl where people place their gifts. You wait your turn. When it's time, you kneel. You place your chuño gently in the bowl. It looks small, pale, fragile. But something about the moment feels heavy. Someone next to you begins humming. A note held low and steady, others join in. It's not a song you recognize, there are no words, but it vibrates through the soil. Now comes your quirky detail, there's a legend that potatoes can hold sound. One tale says if you whisper your worries into a potato before burying it, the earth will digest your sadness. Another says that warriors once spoke into potatoes before battle, hoping their words would grow into courage underground. So yes, you whisper, something small. You don't even say it aloud in your mind. The wind carries it away anyway. Time for a quiet laugh break. Whispering into a potato cheaper than therapy. Don't eat the sad spuds. If your tuber talks back, maybe hike faster. The walk back is slower. You pause often, to breathe, to notice, to think. You pass a bush of golden berries. Someone picks one and hands it to you. You take it without speaking. You both smile. Connection made. No receipt required. As dusk falls, you arrive back at the village. A few fires flicker. Someone plays a soft tune on that spiral flute. You sit on a woven mat outside your hut. The stars come quickly tonight, brighter than usual. Your academic question for this evening: was the potato walk a pilgrimage, a procession, or just a habit made holy over time? Some archaeologists argue that the regular act of walking food to sacred sites was less about worship and more about reinforcing shared responsibility. Others believe it was deeply cosmological part of maintaining harmony between layers of the world above, here, and below. You lean back. You think about below, about all the roots tangled under your feet holding not just the earth together, but the past. You imagine a root shaped like your thought from earlier, tucked beside someone else's and someone else's and someone else's. A slow conversation across centuries. You sleep under open sky. And for the first time, the stars don't feel far away. They feel rooted, not loud, not rowdy, just gentle ripples of amusement drifting through the air like steam from a clay mug. Someone's telling a story in the village square. You follow the sound shawl, half-draped eyes still fogged from sleep. The storyteller is an elder with sun-leathered skin and a woven hat tilted at a ridiculous angle. He's telling the tale of Papa Cabezona, the stubborn-headed potato who refused to be cooked. Apparently, she jumped out of the pot 3 times before agreeing to be dinner, but only if she was served with dignity. People chuckle. Someone offers you a bowl of warm mazamorra, a thick purple corn pudding, sweet and sour and deeply comforting. Today's historical fact. In Andean oral tradition, potatoes weren't just food, they were characters. Stories passed down through generations gave them personalities, opinions, even tempers. Some tales warned children not to tease their potatoes or they'd grow bitter. Others claimed certain tubers could choose who was worthy of their flavor. You eat slower, suddenly aware that your breakfast might be judging you. Next to you, 2 young girls are carving small potato dolls. One has a crown, the other wears a scrap of red yarn. This one's a queen, the girl explains, but she runs fast. Your quirky detail, archaeological evidence suggests that children in pre-Columbian Peru often played with food literally. Miniature pots, figurines, and even carved potatoes have been found in burial sites, possibly as toys, offerings, or both. One famous dig unearthed a potato with legs, just legs. Scholars remain baffled, but maybe kids just have strange priorities. After breakfast, the village prepares for the game. You're intrigued. What game? Turns out it's sumak rukui, a traditional sport involving potatoes, balance, and absolutely no seriousness. You're handed a small wooden paddle, then a round potato. Your task: balance the potato while running a short obstacle course that includes ducking under drying laundry, hopping over baskets, and navigating a suspiciously angry chicken. You fail instantly, but so does everyone else. That's the point. The laughter echoes louder now. The elder from earlier tries the course. His hat falls off mid-run and he shouts, "She's free, everyone cheers." 3 light jokes while you catch your breath. The potato always wins. If it sprouts during the race, you get double points. Never race near chickens. They sense weakness. After the game, everyone gathers again in the square. Musicians arrive with flutes, drums, and something that looks like a harp made of bones. It's actually wood, but the illusion is strong. Dancing begins not in pairs, not in rows, but in a spiral. You're pulled into the swirl. It's not fast, it's not formal, just feet and rhythm and laughter and dust. Your academic question: how do rituals of joy preserve culture? Some anthropologists argue that communal games, songs, and dances were not frivolous. They were memory systems, ways of encoding values, geography, and history into movement. Others point out the social function: shared silliness builds trust, and trust feeds communities. You think of that, of how today's silly game required a dozen acts of cooperation. Someone grew the potato, someone chose the course, someone cheered your awkward fall. It's all connected. Even your poor, bruised race potato gets planted at the end. You never waste a runner, someone says. You nod solemnly even as you're handed another cup of purple chicha. It tastes sweeter this time. Maybe because it's earned. You sit under a sun-warmed wall, half-asleep potato doll in your lap, wondering what it would be like if more of the world balanced celebration and root vegetables. You drift. You dream of a queen who runs fast. And somehow it makes perfect sense. You wake up to smoke. Not the alarming kind, no flames or panic, just the cozy curl of morning firewood and a whisper of toasted grain. Someone's already making tanta wawa bread babies. Yes, bread shaped like babies. You shuffle closer, still wrapped in your sleep shawl. The baker smiles and waves you in. Inside the adobe kitchen, flour dust floats like morning mist. A large table holds a dozen bread figures, each with tiny eyes, yarn-wrapped arms, and painted cheeks. Some have hats. Some have expressions. One looks like it's mid-sneeze. Today's historical fact. Across Andean regions, especially near All Saints' Day or Day of the Dead, families made tanta wawa as symbolic offerings. These sweet breads represented ancestors, children, or spirits returning for a visit. Eating the bread wasn't just nourishment, it was reunion. You help shape dough. It's softer than expected, almost sticky. The baker teaches you to pinch the nose just right. You ruin your first 3 attempts. The 4th one looks more like a startled frog. Still, they praise your effort. A grandmother sets down 2 bowls, one of chancetsa molasses syrup, the other of crushed anise. You brush your bread baby with both carefully. It smells like warm sugar and memory. Quirky detail time. Some villages believe the shape of your tanta wawa could predict your future. If it baked with a big head, you'd become wise. If it cracked down the middle, a guest was coming. If the eyes fuse shut, well, you might be in for a surprise. A few superstitions claim the bread could even talk in dreams if kept overnight. You decide to eat yours promptly. After breakfast, it's time for the next ritual, a pachita building. You follow a group to a nearby ridge where travelers have long stacked small stone towers, offerings to the mountain spirits or apus. Each person adds a rock and a whispered word. You place your stone gently. You say, nothing. Somehow that feels right. Then the laughter returns. 3 travelers joke around the pile. Stack them high, get better Wi-Fi. If your rock falls, your ex is thinking of you. Mine's shaped like a guinea pig. That's lucky, right? The rest of the day is quiet, but not empty. People sit in circles, weaving, whittling, swapping potato recipes that sound more like spells than instructions. You learn about OCA candies and potato ice cream. You're not sure if that last one's real or just a dare. The elder from before tells a new story. This one's about a woman who planted a potato for each emotion she wanted to remember: joy, grief, longing, hope. When she died, her descendants found her underground garden. Each tuber tasted different. Your academic question tonight. Were these bread and stone rituals more religious, mnemonic, or social? Some argue that these acts created a shared calendar, a way to mark time without written words. Others believe they anchored emotional intelligence in physical acts. Still others say it doesn't matter. If something helps people hold on to meaning, it's real enough. As the sun dips low, you wrap your bread baby in cloth. You set it beside your sleeping mat, just in case it dreams. Outside, the stars gather quietly. You think of all the things you've stacked today, dough, stones, stories. Maybe that's the real ritual. Nada, not remembering. But layering, you sleep like bread rising. Warm, still becoming something. Tonight the village hums with a different energy. Not loud, not frantic, but purposeful. You notice it in the way people gather around a low fire pit, in the sudden abundance of herbs, and in the careful unfolding of woven cloths that shimmer with symbolic patterns. Someone hands you a small round root. It's not a potato this time. It's a maca bulb, dark, slightly dusty, and shaped like a forgotten marble. Tonight's focus is on strength. Today's historical fact. Maca, a native Peruvian root, was prized by pre-Columbian cultures for its reputed energy-boosting and fertility-enhancing qualities. Warriors sometimes consumed it before battle. Couples offered it in courtship, and farmers planted it during lunar rituals to ensure potency in the soil. You hold it gently. It feels charged. But not in a lightning way. More like the way a quiet look can carry 1,000 words. The elder speaks again, his voice gravelly but fluid. He tells the story of the two peaks, twin mountains that once loved the same cloud. When she vanished, the peaks grew apart, mourning in silence. But once a year they share a shadow, and maca blooms at the border. You blink slowly. You get it. Tonight's ritual is called Hatun Sumak Kause, the great beautiful living. Each person offers something that gave them strength this year, a carved spoon, a favorite seed, a remembered scent. Your turn. You unwrap your potato doll from earlier and offer it again, not as a gift, but as a witness. You place it beside the maca root. Selemum. Someone else places a flute. Another a handful of salt. Then the humming begins, a slow tone passed from voice to voice like wind echoing in a canyon. Quirky detail time. Some Quechua traditions speak of singing the soil awake. These tones weren't just music, they were considered nourishment. Certain songs were believed to coax fertility from tired earth, heal invisible wounds, or even sweeten bitter vegetables. You join the hum, at first unsure, but your voice finds a place in the chord and stays. 3 soft jokes from the circle. If your root starts dancing, you hum too hard. Maca nature's espresso, but with dirt. Singing to the soil is fine, just don't expect it to text back. After the last note fades, people remain still, long enough for silence to speak. And in that hush, someone begins braiding the offerings into a single cloth, slowly, reverently, as if weaving time. You help, fingers touching yarn and wood and spice and sound. When finished, the bundle is tied with a red thread and placed on a stone. No explanation. No claim of what it does, just placed. Your academic question. Were such rituals for the land, the people, or the story scholars debate if Hatun Sumak Kause was a moment of community calibration, an emotional reset disguised as folklore? Others see it as proto-environmentalism, a way to honor balance. Still others claim it was poetry in motion, a reminder that strength isn't loud, but layered. You walk back slowly, maca in your pocket, the song still echoing in your bones. The stars look closer now, and softer, like they too are humming. You begin the day before sunrise. Not by choice, someone knocks at your door with a cup of warm Muna tea and a slightly guilty smile. We go to the terraces, they say. The potatoes are listening. Still half asleep, you wrap yourself in wool and follow. The terraces stretch like green stairs across the mountainside, precise and winding, ancient and alive. Stone walls hold in soil like cupped hands. Mist curls at their edges. You walk in silence, each step softened by grass and dew. Today's historical fact. Andean agricultural terraces called andines were a marvel of engineering. Built for both function and symbolism, they controlled erosion, managed water, and followed the spiritual geometry of the land. Some archaeologists believe the shapes mirrored constellations farming with the stars. You reach the top just as light spills over the peaks, and you see them. Rows upon rows of potato plants, tiny leaves trembling in the dawn. Each row labeled with stones, hundreds of varieties. Blue, red, speckled, finger-length, palm-sized. Someone hands you a notebook. You help today, they say. Not dig, not pick, just observe. This is the season of Katawak, the tasting and watching. Potatoes are gently pulled, examined, and discussed. Too soft, wrong color, not enough eyes, too many. Each flaw, each strength is noted. You realize this is a ceremony of patience. Not just science, reverence, your quirky detail. Ancient Andean farmers kept detailed oral records of potato traits, flavor, texture, growth habits, often linked with dream songs or family legends. One variety was known as the one that weeps when boiled. Another, the traveler's friend, always cooked faster on high peaks. You watch a woman press her cheek to a freshly pulled potato. She closes her eyes, nods, then places it in the keep basket. Mid-morning, you're invited to taste. Slices of raw, boiled, roasted tubers laid out like a palette. Some earthy, others tangy, one almost like apple. You find your favorite, a bright yellow one with a creamy texture. This one, someone says, is called Sun's Grandchild. You believe it. 3 gentle jokes overheard in the terrace rows. If a potato bites back, it's not ripe. The more eyes, the better it sees your secrets. You can't marry until you've picked your favorite potato. Twice. After lunch, clouds gather. Someone sings to the field, not words, just a soft melody. Others join. The wind joins too. And for a moment, the terraces feel like a giant amphitheater. Not for humans. For potatoes, your academic question. Were agricultural rituals also storytelling rituals? Some scholars argue that farming in the Andes was as much narrative as nutrition. Naming potatoes, singing to soil, selecting seeds by story, these were acts of cultural continuity. Others counter that these were purely practical codes wrapped in poetry. You, sitting with a handful of Sun's Grandchild in your lap, think maybe they're both right. Maybe the best truths grow in layers. You descend the terraces slowly. The mist returns. Your notebook is half full with sketches and half sentences. Blue one tastes like almonds. Tiny red smells like rain. Plant this again. You sleep that night with dirt under your nails, and a full belly, and the echo of singing, as if the potatoes are humming you to sleep. The morning begins not with food, but with fire. Not a blazing one, a slow hidden flame. You're led to a stone pit half buried in earth, its mouth covered with thick, round rocks. A few thin wisps of smoke rise from the gaps. You kneel close. It smells faintly of ash clay and something savory. Today's historical fact. The huatia, a traditional Andean earth oven, was used for millennia to cook potatoes and other tubers. Built from stones and earth into a dome, it used retained heat and pressure to steam and roast foods slowly, often for hours. More than a cooking method, it was often a communal event. The villagers step back. With a practiced hand, the elder knocks the top rocks aside, and steam billows. From within, wrapped in leaves and clay, emerge dozens of potatoes, golden, purple, red-skinned, each steamed to creamy perfection. A child shouts, "The earth has finished baking." You laugh. So does everyone else. They pass you a cloth to carry a few still warm. You bite into one. The skin peels easily, and inside it's buttery without butter. Slightly smoky. Comfort in tuber form. Quirky detail time. Some believe that potatoes cooked in a huatia took on the traits of the land where they were buried. Potatoes from high cliffs made you braver. Valley-baked ones gave you sweeter dreams. A few tales claimed if you whispered a secret into the pit before sealing it, the potato that found your secret would guard it forever. You try it. You whisper something silly, then carefully place your chosen potato back in the pit. Just for fun. Midday brings stories. Everyone has a huatia memory. A burnt one on a first date. A birthday where the fire wouldn't light. One where the potatoes were forgotten and turned into legend. 3 soft jokes around the pit. If your potato explodes, it had secrets to keep. Huatia proof that dirt makes everything taste better. You can't call it a real feast unless someone burns their fingers. Afternoon shifts to another tradition, one both playful and precise. Sorting the skins. Yes, after eating, the group gathers to separate skins by color, thickness, texture. Not to throw away, but to compost separately. Different skins nourish different plants. Some are dried for dyes, others for animal feed. You realize nothing here is waste. Every peel has purpose. And that brings you to tonight's question. Did Andean agricultural methods anticipate modern sustainability? Scholars debate how conscious these early systems were of long-term ecological balance. Was the sorting of skins ritual or practical, sacred or systemic? Some argue the Andean worldview blurred those lines, seeing the land as both relative and resource. Others believe it was survival disguised as belief. You finish your sorting. Your fingers smell like earth and smoke and salt. Evening settles in and a flute begins to play, softly. A lullaby not for children, but for the land itself. You curl up near the now cool Huatia pit. Someone tucks a cloth over your shoulders. You smile, and somewhere beneath you your whispered potato hums quietly. Keeping your secret, just like it promised. Today's walk begins with laughter. Not yours, at least not at first. It's coming from a nearby courtyard where a group of elders are seated in a wide circle tossing something back and forth. You peek over the wall. Potatoes, they're tossing potatoes. Gently with ceremony, but also with mischief. One catches a misshapen one and declares it a bad omen. Another pretends to faint when she catches a heart-shaped spud. A third balances two on his head. Today's historical fact. In some Andean cultures, particularly during seasonal transitions, elders would gather to bless or test the new potato harvest through light-hearted games and contests. These moments blurred the lines between ritual play and social commentary. They spot you. A space opens. You're handed a lumpy red speckled potato. You toss, you catch, you miss. Laughter erupts. Someone starts telling potato riddles. What grows underground wears 1,000 faces and never gossips. Answer the wise one who watches with no mouth. Your quirky detail. One traditional riddle claimed that if you solved it wrong, your next crop would taste like regret. Another told children that talking ill of potatoes would make your feet swell. You smile, of course, but also glance at your shoes. The games continue, soon becoming oddly philosophical. One elder proposes a game where you toss a potato and share a secret. Not a big one, a weather-sized one. Something light like I wish it would rain or I miss mangoes. The circle listens, tosses, shares. I saw a cloud shaped like my grandmother. I once buried a potato and forgot where. I think my guinea pig can understand me. You confess something small, I talk to my food before I eat it. No one laughs. They nod. That makes perfect sense here. 3 soft jokes during the game. A round potato means a round year, so avoid the lumpy ones. If you drop your potato, it chooses its own story. Talking to your lunch? That's just polite. As the sun climbs, the game shifts into something quieter. The circle grows still. Each elder now selects a potato and gently places it in a pouch, whispering a word into the cloth. Not for you to hear. A woman leans in and explains these are wishes. We plant them later, not for food, but for future. You're invited to do the same. You choose a soft purple one. Whisper something you didn't know you wanted. Place it gently among the others. The pouches are tied with colored thread, red for strength, yellow for health, blue for clear thoughts. You choose green for curiosity. The question of the day. Were these rituals an early form of cognitive therapy? Scholars debate whether these wish pouch practices were psychological self-care disguised as agriculture. Others argue they were community archives encoding feelings in the soil like planting future memory. You stand to leave. The courtyard glows. Potatoes rest in every corner, but none are just food now. They're dreams. Tucked into pouches, waiting to be planted, waiting to grow into something only the soil will understand. You wake up to the sound of whispering, not human, leaves. The wind is gentle this morning, sifting through thatched rooftops and brushing the potato blossoms with a softness that feels deliberate. You stretch, yawn, and follow it, curious where whispers lead. It leads to water, a stream trickling between stones and woven reeds where women kneel with baskets of potatoes. But these are not cooking. Not yet. They are washing. Today's historical fact. In many ancient Andean communities, washing potatoes wasn't merely hygiene. It was part of a purification ritual before feast days or offerings. Streams considered sacred were chosen for this task, believed to infuse the potatoes with spiritual clarity. The water is cold, crisp, and oddly sweet. You dip your fingers in, then your hands. Someone hands you a basket. You begin to wash. Each potato is treated like a gemstone. Gently rolled, swirled, rinsed, and inspected. Some are murmured to, others are set aside. You ask why. One woman replies, some potatoes are listeners. They take in sorrow. We don't eat those. Your quirky detail. Potatoes with oddly shaped eyes or dark marks were sometimes believed to have absorbed negative energy, making them unsuitable for consumption, but perfect for burying under doorways or in corners to guard the home. By midday, the stream is lined with drying potatoes on woven mats. The colors gleam purples, creams, yellows. It looks like a painter's dream. Then someone starts stacking them. Yes, stacking. Carefully, artistically, a tiny tower, then another. You've stumbled into Tekapalana, the floral potato offering. But it's not just about flowers. It's about symmetry, patience, and metaphor. The towers are built with washed potatoes, blossoms, and feathers. Each one represents a wish or memory. You are invited to build one. You select a trio, one yellow like sunlight, one purple like dusk, and a tiny red one, crooked but charming. You arrange them in a spiral, add a marigold, then whisper, let this tower remember laughter. You don't know who hears, but the air feels softer afterward. 3 soft jokes shared by the stream. A tower that falls means the potatoes are shy. If a blossom wilts too soon, your wish is impatient. The crooked ones make the strongest foundations. In the late afternoon, the towers are carried, yes, gently lifted up a nearby hill. There they are placed in a circle, facing the horizon. You ask why. Someone answers, so the mountains can see what we hope. And as golden light washes over the land, the circle glows. Potatoes, blossoms, hope. Arranged without hierarchy, just harmony. Tonight's question, can food carry intention beyond nutrition? Scholars argue whether these ritual arrangements were purely symbolic or if they served deeper emotional regulation and communal bonding. Could a potato tower be an anchor for grief? A beacon for longing? You don't know. But you feel better, like something inside you was also rinsed. Also stacked, also seen by the mountains. Night has fallen, but the village is not asleep. You follow the sound of tapping, gentle but persistent. Under a woven canopy lit by candles, a dozen hands are at work. They're not cooking, not quite. They're carving, decorating, tattooing. Potatoes. Yes, tonight's historical fact. In several Andean highland communities, ceremonial potatoes were marked or etched before being offered to spirits or ancestors. These marks could represent family lineage, weather requests, or harvest thanks. Some were even kept in homes as talismans preserved through drying or smoke curing. You sit beside an old man who gestures to an empty seat. He offers you a smooth, round potato and a small tool somewhere between a needle and a quill. You ask what to draw. He shrugs. What do you want the ancestors to remember? You hesitate, then slowly begin a spiral, a small sun and what might be a sleeping fox. Not perfect, but sincere. The man nods. You've told a story they'll like. Your quirky detail. Some families pass down marked ceremonial potatoes from generation to generation, not to eat, but to store under beds, inside walls, or with heirlooms. One 19th century journal describes a traveler finding a potato with more family history than the patriarch beside it. 3 soft jokes whispered around the carving table. If your potato cracks, your ancestor sneezed. The best carvings are made after midnight and one glass of chicha. Never carve your own nose, it invites confusing dreams. When finished, the carved potatoes are rubbed with ash and placed in woven trays. These are not to be buried, not tonight. They're going dancing. Yes, carried, not worn. You follow the group to a clearing lit with flickering torches. Drums beat softly, flutes hum a melody that feels older than names. Each person holds their potato like a baby chick, gentle, proud, absurdly reverent. The dance begins in spirals, not fast, almost like swaying grass. You're pulled into the circle, and somehow it makes sense to dance with a potato that holds your story, your grief, your gratitude. You glance at yours, it seems amused. As the rhythm slows, the circle sits breathing together, and that's when the keeper speaks. An elder in a cloak that glimmers with tiny mirrors, each reflecting a different star. She tells no story. She asks no question. She simply hums, and it is the hum that lingers. Later, as you tuck your carved potato beside your bed, you wonder, could these rituals be an ancient form of cognitive archiving? Modern scholars debate whether such ceremonies were mnemonic tools, a way to encode stories without words using texture, symbol, and repetition. Others propose they were methods of distributing memory into the material world. You fall asleep with your story nearby, and in your dream it dances. Morning again, and today it's quieter than usual. You rise, slowly stretch your arms, and smell something faintly sweet in the air. It's not breakfast. It's soil. You follow the scent past sleeping huts and silent chickens until you reach a broad plateau. Freshly tilled earth steaming slightly in the morning sun. Dozens of shallow pits arranged like constellations. Within each, a nest of straw still warm. Today's historical fact: waru was an ancient Andean agricultural technique using raised beds and water-filled channels to regulate temperature and moisture. But beyond practicality, some waru sites were used ceremonially, particularly after harvest, where cooked potatoes were reburied as offerings of thanks and renewal. You're handed a woven basket. Inside, warm roasted potatoes fragrant with eucalyptus smoke and something else you can't name. You're told not to eat them, not yet. Today is for return. Each person walks to a pit, kneels, and gently places a potato into the earth, then covers it with soil and murmurs a few words. You join. Your potato is small, golden, with a spiral carved faintly into its skin left over from last night's dance. You whisper, "Thank you. Grow again." Your quirky detail. Some Andean farmers believed that reburying the first roasted potato of the season allowed its spirit to guide next year's crop. These potatoes weren't just buried, they were sung to, occasionally given drops of chicha fermented drink, and remembered like lost pets. After the burial, a slow procession forms. But there's no drumming today, only footsteps and the soft rustle of straw garments brushing one another. The procession leads to a stone circle, a low wall marked with tiny carved symbols. In the center, a fire crackles. Not large, but constant. Each person steps forward, throws a pinch of ash into the flame, and names something they wish to forget. You hesitate, then say softly, "I wish to forget the silence I didn't break." The ash flickers, the fire sighs. 3 soft jokes shared near the fire. If the fire smokes, your secret wasn't ready. Ash that dances is a blessing from a potato you buried well. If you forget what you wanted to forget, congratulations, you succeeded. Afterwards, bowls are passed around. Finally, potatoes for eating. But these aren't from the basket. They're freshly roasted, split open, topped with herbs and ash salt. You bite in. It's warm, smoky, and strangely comforting, as if it remembers you. Tonight's academic debate. Were these post-harvest return rituals agricultural, spiritual, or therapeutic? Some archaeologists suggest waru reuse was purely practical, improving soil quality. Others argue these rites were proto-ecological, a dialogue with the land grounded in reciprocity, memory, and moral nourishment. You don't have the answer, but as the sun dips low and the last bowl is passed, you feel a sense of exhale, like something has been returned. And not just to the soil, to you. Tonight the stars are low. Not literally, but it feels that way. You lie on a woven mat outside, eyes half closed, tracing constellations you don't recognize. The air is crisp and the hush of the mountains seems to press gently on your shoulders. You're not alone. Around you, others also lie still, not sleeping, waiting. And then, without signal, it begins. Someone hums a single note. Then another joins. And soon soft singing rises in waves, gentle low harmonies that ripple across the hilltop. Tonight's historical fact. In Quechua traditions, night songs, especially those sung during planting or harvest periods, were believed to guide the dreams of the seeds, ensuring that the next crop grew straight and sweet. Some called them wasintaki or home songs, but they weren't always for plants. Sometimes they were for people. You're handed a bundle wrapped in cloth. It's a potato, but not just any. This one's been dried and dyed, its skin etched with silver lines, tiny holes poked in the sides like a flute. You gently shake it. It rattles. Your quirky detail, papa sonko or heart potatoes, were ritually dried and turned into rattles, then played during dream-singing ceremonies. The sound wasn't melodic but soothing, like seeds shifting in earth. It was believed to call ancestors, soothe spirits, and keep bad dreams at bay. You rattle yours softly. The woman beside you nods. Yours is kind, let it hum. You hum. The potato answers. 3 soft jokes hummed in the dark. If your potato sings louder than you, it has stories to tell. Never hum with your mouth full of mash unless you want ghost hiccups. A rattling potato means your ancestors are still awake. The night deepens. One man begins a slow story about a child who planted a potato upside down and it grew laughter instead of roots. Another tells of a woman whose sleep healed cracked earth just by dreaming. You're asked to tell one. You hesitate, then whisper once a stranger came to the mountains with no memory. They slept beside the potatoes and woke up fluent in kindness. No one claps, but someone sighs. That's better. Tonight's scholarly question: can ritualized storytelling and lullaby song serve as communal therapy? Some anthropologists argue these nightly gatherings were early forms of group processing where sound silence and shared presence allowed emotional repair. Others suggest it was less about healing and more about tuning into ecological time, syncing human rhythm to soil, moon, and seed. You fall asleep on the mat, potato in hand. Stars still listening. Tonight the stars are low. Not literally, but it feels that way. You lie on a woven mat outside, eyes half closed, tracing constellations you don't recognize. The air is crisp and the hush of the mountains seems to press gently on your shoulders. You're not alone. Around you, others also lie still, not sleeping, waiting. And then without signal it begins. Someone hums a single note, then another joins. And soon soft singing rises in waves, gentle low harmonies that ripple across the hilltop. Tonight's historical fact in Quechua. Traditions' night songs, especially those sung during planting or harvest periods, were believed to guide the dreams of the seeds, ensuring that the next crop grew straight and sweet. Some called them wasintaki or home songs, but they weren't always for plants. Sometimes they were for people. You're handed a bundle wrapped in cloth. It's a potato, but not just any. This one's been dried and dyed, its skin etched with silver lines, tiny holes poked in the sides like a flute. You gently shake it. It rattles. Your quirky detail, papa sonko or heart potatoes, were ritually dried and turned into rattles, then played during dream-singing ceremonies. The sound wasn't melodic but soothing, like seeds shifting in earth. It was believed to call ancestors, soothe spirits, and keep bad dreams at bay. You rattle yours softly. The woman beside you nods. Yours is kind. Let it hum. You hum, the potato answers. 3 soft jokes hummed in the dark. If your potato sings louder than you, it has stories to tell. Never hum with your mouth full of mash unless you want ghost hiccups. A rattling potato means your ancestors are still awake. The night deepens. One man begins a slow story about a child who planted a potato upside down and it grew laughter instead of roots. Another tells of a woman whose sleep healed cracked earth just by dreaming. You're asked to tell one. You hesitate, then whisper once a stranger came to the mountains with no memory. They slept beside the potatoes and woke up fluent in kindness. No one claps, but someone sighs. That's better. Tonight's scholarly question: can ritualized storytelling and lullaby songs serve as communal therapy? Some anthropologists argue these nightly gatherings were early forms of group processing where sound, silence, and shared presence allowed emotional repair. Others suggest it was less about healing and more about tuning into ecological time, syncing human rhythm to soil, moon, and seed. You fall asleep on the mat, potato in hand. Stars still listening. Midday. Not quite the middle of your stay, but close enough to feel it. You've begun to sense the rhythm of this mountain village, not just in footsteps or sunrise, but in the quiet things. The way water is poured. The way potatoes are turned once, never twice. The way people laugh without raising their voices. Today they're preparing for something different. A ceremony not of planting or harvest or memory, but of naming. Today's historical fact. In certain Andean cultures, potatoes were given names not metaphorically but officially during agricultural festivals or birth ceremonies. Naming a potato marked it as a seed carrier for future seasons. It also linked it to family lineages, natural events, or qualities admired in the community. You're handed a small speckled potato with eyes that haven't yet sprouted. A man beside you says she's brave. Name her well. You ask what kind of names are allowed. He smiles, whatever makes her stronger. You think for a moment, then whisper Puma Kusi. Joy of the mountain lion. The potato sits quietly in your hands as if weighing her new name. Your quirky detail. Some potatoes with names were kept for generations, not eaten. Their names were whispered during storms or droughts, or even sung to newborns as protection charms. In one region, a famous potato named Rain Eyes was credited with ending a 6-week dry spell in the 1600s. Nearby, a woman paints faces on her potatoes with clay and berry juice. Another ties colored threads around theirs. A child presses his potato to his forehead and laughs. There's a quiet joy to it all, like giving gifts to time itself. 3 soft jokes exchanged while naming. If your potato gets 3 names, she's probably royalty. Don't name your potato after your ex, it might grow bitter. The louder the name, the slower it sprouts. Shy potatoes are the fastest. After the naming, the community gathers around a long cloth spread over the grass. Each person sets their potato gently on it. Then someone brings a wooden flute, not for music exactly. For breath, they walk the line of named potatoes, breathing through the flute over each one, as if introducing them to wind. You ask why. The elder says because a name is not real until the air carries it. Tonight's scholarly question. Were these naming rites symbolic of agricultural resilience or reflections of kinship cosmologies? Some ethnobotanists argue naming crops anthropomorphized responsibility, encouraging better stewardship. Others believe the practice framed plants as social actors embedded in Andean concepts of Aini reciprocal relationship and Sumak Kause good living. As dusk nears, the potatoes are collected again. Not for burial. Not yet. They'll be stored in a sacred room for a full moon cycle, cradled in straw and shadow. And as you lie down to sleep, you imagine Puma Kusi nestled there, brave and small. Named and listening. It rains today. Not heavily, just enough for everything to glisten. The rooftops hum. The paths become soft underfoot, and the air smells like moss, wet wool, and inevitably potato steam. But no one hides. Instead, the rain seems to be part of the plan. You're invited to a circular room with an open ceiling. In the center, a slow fire burns under a blackened pot. Around it, people sit with small, smooth stones in their laps. Today's historical fact. In several Quechua communities, potatoes were steamed in rainwater during rites of renewal. The idea was simple. The sky brings memory, the fire transforms, the mouth remembers. It wasn't just a meal, it was a weather-marked promise. You're handed your own stone. Warm oval just the size of a palm. The woman beside you says hold it while the steam speaks. Let the heat teach your fingers. Your quirky detail stones used in these rain steam rituals were passed down for generations. Some were believed to remember better than others, especially those with streaks of quartz or unusual shapes. One tale says a stone shaped like a fish could make a bland potato taste like river herbs. Steam rises. Someone begins to hum not a song this time, but more like slow breath. You feel the potato soften in your hand. You don't eat it. Not yet. 3 soft jokes shared between steam. If your potato squeaks in steam, it's probably trying to gossip. Never trust a stone that gets cold too fast, it forgets your name. Rain potatoes taste better if you compliment the sky first. The elder stirs the pot, then ladles warm water into tiny clay cups. You sip. It tastes like earth and ash and the ghost of a root. Then finally the potatoes are split. Not with knives, just thumbs. Each person shares theirs with someone else, feeding each other as if the bite carries not just flavor, but history. Yours tastes like smoke and something else. A memory that isn't yours. You swallow it anyway. Tonight's scholarly debate. Were rain steam ceremonies part of agricultural calibration or metaphysical communion? Some argue the timing reflected hydrological logic synchronizing crops with seasonal signals. Others believe it symbolized the fusion of time layers, ancestral, elemental, and bodily, all shared in a single bite. As the rain fades, laughter echoes through the circular room. Someone sings. Someone else burns their tongue and makes a dramatic face. And the stones, they're placed back in a pouch tied with red string and set aside. Until next rain. You walk home with a warm belly and slightly damp shoes. Yeah, but also something else. A stone in your pocket. Warm. Still remembering, you wake to silence. Not the absence of sound, but that thick woolen quiet like snow without snow, like dawn holding its breath. No birds, no footsteps. Even the dogs are still. Something is happening. A figure in gray beckons you toward the storage house on the hill. The one with the narrow door and the heavy beams. Inside it's dark. Cool. And filled with studna singing. But it's not human. It's the rustle of straw. The breath of woven baskets. The low creak of wood settling. The potatoes. Today's historical fact. In some Andean cultures, storage houses, kolkas, were treated as sacred repositories of balance. Not just for food, but for spiritual equilibrium. Offerings were made to the storage spirits to prevent spoilage and ensure community stability. You walk between rows of shelves. You notice a small bowl of dried flowers at the base of each shelf. Memory wards whispers your guide, your quirky detail. In some mountain regions, it was believed that potatoes could absorb emotions. A potato placed near a grieving widow or a laughing child would remember those feelings and either sour or sweeten accordingly. Villagers would sometimes mark these with color-coded threads before storage. You're handed a potato with a red thread and a notch on one side. She wept for a brother, says the elder. Help her sleep. You carry it to the central altar, a flat stone surrounded by cold ashes. You place her down. And wait. 3 soft jokes whispered in the gloom. Potatoes don't snore, but they do roll in their sleep. Never store gossip potatoes near drama corn. They ferment. The sadder the spud, the deeper the nap it needs. You close your eyes. Not in prayer, in presence. For a moment you feel the air shift as if the sadness curled inside the red-threaded potato is exhaling. Later you help scatter dried herbs near the door, munya for clarity, eucalyptus for warmth, and something bitter you're told is for forgetting just enough. Tonight's scholarly question. Were these rituals expressions of symbolic agricultural mindfulness or rooted in actual biochemical observation? Some researchers believe emotional associations improved inventory tracking, while others suggest the rituals encoded complex knowledge about climate pest resistance and community morale. As you step back outside, the sun has returned. The silence lifts. The birds remember how to sing. You carry no potato this time, but your hands still feel full. There's a feast today. Not the kind with trumpets or long tables or dozens of dishes. This one is circular, grounded, intimate. It begins at the hearth. Today's historical fact. In many pre-Columbian Andean traditions, communal meals were structured around a principle of reciprocity and mutual support. Each person brought something and no one kept track. The act of sharing food reinforced social contracts, especially during seasonal transitions. The pot is opened. Steam rises. Inside a stew of potatoes, herbs, river stones, and a cloudy broth that smells of mint and something older. The first ladle is offered to the mountain. It's poured onto the earth just outside the circle. Then silence. You're handed a bowl carved from gourd. You eat slowly. The potato is soft, but holds its shape. The broth lingers on your tongue. It's unlike anything you've tasted, not because it's strange, but because it's layered. Like a story told in food, your quirky detail. In some regions, families trained their children to identify ancestors based on taste. Certain potato varieties were linked to specific bloodlines. A child might bite into one and say, "This one's from grandmother's field," even without seeing the planting. It was flavor as genealogy. 3 soft jokes passed around the pot. If the stew tastes too wise, someone snuck in a grandparent potato. Don't trust a spoon that floats, it's plotting something. The pot never boils when you stare at it, unless you tell it a joke first. The laughter is soft like spoons against clay. Someone begins to hum. Not a song, but a weaving voices layering in waves, low and warm. You close your eyes and feel full, not just in your belly, but in your bones. Tonight's scholarly musing: was the act of communal eating primarily nutritional, or did it function as mnemonic ritual? Some anthropologists argue that meals like these preserved social memory in embodied form, literally feeding people the values and stories they needed to carry. Others see it as a metabolic metaphor for land-human reciprocity. When the pot is nearly empty, no one rushes. You help scrape the last bits with a stone spoon. Then the fire is left to die on its own. You sit for a while longer. Bowl in lap, stomach warm, and a thought quietly blooming that maybe you've been part of something older than history, something tasted then There's a feast today, not the kind with trumpets or long tables or dozens of dishes. This one is circular, grounded, intimate. It begins at the hearth, a ring of stones, some blackened from years of fire. In the center, a single clay pot. Around it, elders, children, the woman who carries salt in her apron, the man with the feather behind his ear, and you. Today's historical fact. In many pre-Columbian Andean traditions, communal meals were structured around a principle of reciprocity and mutual support. Each person brought something and no one kept track. The act of sharing food reinforced social contracts, especially during seasonal transitions. The pot is opened. Steam rises. Inside, a stew of potatoes, herbs, river stones, and a cloudy broth that smells of mint and something older. The first ladle is offered to the mountain. It's poured onto the earth just outside the circle. Then silence. You're handed a bowl carved from gourd. You eat slowly. The potato is soft but holds its shape. The broth lingers on your tongue. It's unlike anything you've tasted, not because it's strange, but because it's layered. Like a story told in food. Your quirky detail. In some regions, families trained their children to identify ancestors based on taste. Certain potato varieties were linked to specific bloodlines. A child might bite into one and say, "This one's from grandmother's field," even without seeing the planting. It was flavor as genealogy. 3 soft jokes passed around the pot. If the stew tastes too wise, someone snuck in a grandparent potato. Don't trust a spoon that floats, it's plotting something. The pot never boils when you stare at it, unless you tell it a joke first. The laughter is soft like spoons against clay. Someone begins to hum. Not a song, but a weaving voices layering in waves low and warm. You close your eyes and feel full not just in your belly, but in your bones. Tonight's scholarly musing was the act of communal eating primarily nutritional, or did it function as mnemonic ritual? Some anthropologists argue that meals like these preserved social memory in embodied form, literally feeding people the values and stories they needed to carry. Others see it as a metabolic metaphor for land-human reciprocity. When the pot is nearly empty, no one rushes. You help scrape the last bits with a stone spoon, then the fire is left to die on its own. You sit for a while longer, bowl in lap, stomach warm, and a thought quietly blooming that maybe you've been part of something older than history, something tasted then remembered. There's smoke on the ridge today, but no fire. Just long, slow plumes curling up from stone ovens buried deep in the ground, Pachamanca ovens used only during certain seasons and always with ceremony. You're invited to help dig. The soil is warm, damp, it smells of garlic, eucalyptus clay, and memory. Today's historical fact. Pachamanca is an ancient Andean earth oven technique dating back over 1,000 years. Stones are heated, then layered with tubers, meats, herbs, and leaves. The ground becomes the oven, the lid is made of earth, and time is the only clock. You lift away layers of wet cloth and singed grass. Below, steam bursts upward like breath. Potatoes, charred and golden, sit nestled among glowing stones. Everyone claps once, then stillness. You're handed tongs carved from bone. You help lift the potatoes one by one into a wide woven basket, your quirky detail. In some mountain villages, people believed each potato should be pulled from the earth with gratitude, or it would return to haunt you in your dreams, usually as a judgmental face carved in root form. Children were taught to greet each spud with a whispered thank you or risk a night of restless legs. You greet each one, softly. You carry the basket to the feast circle. This time there are words, songs, jokes, clapping games, a flute played on a reed that sounds like bird laughter. 3 soft jokes drift past the stew pot. The first potato out of the oven is always the diva. If your potato explodes, it probably had secrets. Never trust a tuber with too many eyes, it's watching you in the stew. You laugh with your mouth full. The skin of the earth-baked potato cracks like old parchment, and the inside is dense, almost creamy. You dip it into a green sauce made from huacatai leaves and something citrusy. It tastes like sunshine wrapped in moss. Tonight's scholarly musing. Did Pachamanca serve purely culinary ends? Or was it a structured mnemonic device, a way to pass down agricultural calendars, family recipes, and collective rituals? Some archaeologists argue the layering of ingredients and herbs mirrored cosmological hierarchies. Others see it as seasonal performance art. As night falls, the ovens cool. You help brush off the stones and return them to a circle near the temple wall. They'll sleep there until the next cycle. You sit near the embers, potato in hand, face warm. And you wonder how many memories can fit in a meal. How many voices in a single bite. The wind carries eucalyptus and ash. You stay until the last flame disappears. And then with full belly and dusty fingers, you walk back downhill into the hush. You wake up before the sun, not because someone calls you, but because the potatoes do. You feel them cool and waiting, buried in the riverbank, wrapped in straw, hidden in the dark until they're ready. It's the day of frost potatoes, today's historical fact. In ancient Andean agriculture, chuño, freeze-dried potatoes, were created by leaving tubers out overnight to freeze naturally, then drying them in the sun during the day. The process could take days, even weeks. This method preserved the potato for years and allowed easier transport across mountain passes. You walk barefoot through the mist. The riverbank is quiet. You find the mounds, kneel, and start to unwrap. The first potato is cold as stone. You press it to your cheek. It doesn't melt, it waits. You lay it gently on a woven mat, then another and another. Each one breathes its frost into the dawn. Your quirky detail. Some elders swore that chuño had a voice not in words, but in the crackle it made when bitten dry. They claimed you could tell the age of the person who made it by listening. The louder the crunch, the younger the hands that froze it. You listen to one crack under your thumb. It sounds like snow stepping back. You begin the slow sun drying. Flip, press, wait, repeat. Around you, others join. No one speaks much. It's a sacred labor. Even the birds seem quieter. 3 quiet jokes exchanged in glances. Don't drop a chuño, it might bounce to next season. If it crunches like thunder, it's probably your great aunt's. Never lie on your taxes near chuño, they remember everything. You lay them out in rows. The ground steams slightly as sun meets frost. Some are peeled. Others are stomped under clean feet to press out moisture. A rhythm builds step turn, pat step. It's like dancing on history. Tonight's scholarly query. Was chuño just a preservation technique or also a metaphysical gesture freezing time into food? Some theorists propose the method symbolized resilience against the unpredictability of the mountain world. Others note how the process mirrored ritual cleansing, death, exposure, transformation, and rebirth. At sunset, the last batch is stacked in tall reed baskets. You feel your knees ache. Numb, but your chest is light. You carry one basket on your back. It smells of glacier and straw. Someone beside you hums. Not a tune, more like a memory unzipped. Iquodin. You follow it home. Not to sleep, but to share. 'Cause chuño isn't just kept, it's offered. And tonight, the first gift is yours. It's festival night. And not just any festival, the kind where the potatoes wear costumes. Yes, you heard that right. Potatoes in little hats. Some with beads. Some painted. Some carved into animals, others stacked into small potato pyramids. It's absurd. It's beautiful. It's very real. Today's historical fact. In several regions of the Andes, harvest festivals like Koilur Riti and Chakra Remi included ceremonial displays of decorated tubers representing spirits of abundance, fertility, or ancestral protection. Potatoes were paraded, sung to, even judged in beauty contests. You're handed a brush and a basket. Your job, glam up a potato. You choose one that's slightly heart-shaped. You give it tiny charcoal freckles and a soft blue stripe. Someone adds a crown of maize silk. A child tapes 2 feathers to its sides. You can't stop smiling. Your quirky detail. There's a myth that if a decorated potato wins a festival prize, it becomes sacred and must never be eaten. But one village swore their 2002 winner went missing only to reappear the next year dressed better. No one ever admitted to eating it. To this day, they believe it became sentient and now roams from field to field as a starchy guardian. Your potato doesn't win, but it makes people laugh. It's placed on the wall of almost winners beside a lumpy spud dressed like a llama. You feel proud. 3 festive jokes tossed through the dancing. That potato's got more style than my cousin at graduation. If it starts moonwalking, we give it a scholarship. Next year, we let the tubers vote. Music swells. Flutes, drums, bells tied to knees. People dance in spirals, holding sacks of miniature potatoes dyed red and green. They toss them into the air like rice at a wedding. Some catch them in bowls. Others let them fall laughing. It's the happiest chaos you've seen since the beginning. And you don't want it to end. Tonight's academic puzzle. Were these festivals merely symbolic of agrarian gratitude or subtly satirical performances mocking hierarchy, transforming the mundane into the magical and allowing potatoes to speak social truths through exaggeration? Scholars argue that the blurring of food and personality created safe critique zones in rigid societies. Someone hands you a glowing potato lantern. Yes, a real lantern carved, hollowed, lit from within. You walk with it, into the night, not alone. Hundreds of others march too, holding potato lights. The field becomes a constellation of humble stars. You lift your glowing tuber high and whisper, thank you. For the absurdity, for the abundance, for reminding you that even the smallest food can carry the biggest stories. You don't walk home tonight, you drift. Feet light, mind full, fingers dusted with earth and glitter, and in your pocket one small painted potato, a gift, or maybe a farewell. Tonight's historical fact: ancient Peruvians often buried potatoes with their dead. Not out of superstition, but love. They believed the soul would need sustenance on the long journey, preferably something familiar, something enduring. A potato was both. You arrive at a quiet plateau. One last fire burns low. No one speaks, everyone waits. You sit in a wide circle surrounded by figures wrapped in shawls, warm breath rising into stars. A single woman stands in the center. She holds a chuño hard and white like a fossil, and begins to speak not in language, but sound. A low tone like mountain wind remembering something. Then from the shadows a line of elders steps forward. Each carries a potato. Each places it on the ground. The circle becomes a spiral. The spiral becomes a story. You place yours too. A hush falls, and suddenly you feel it. Every story from the past 29 nights is here. In the silence, in the smell of burnt eucalyptus, in the shape of a spiral made from food and memory, your quirky detail. In some traditions, if a person cried while burying their final festival potato, it was believed the rains would come early. So people trained themselves to smile even if they missed the tuber. They said tears feed roots too fast. You smile, just in case. 3 final soft jokes whispered into the starlight. When I die, bury me with a baked potato fully loaded. If I reincarnate as a yam, please season me respectfully. The afterlife is probably just soup. You lie back on the grass. The earth is cool. Your thoughts slower now. You trace the spiral with your eyes one last time and wonder, was this journey about potatoes? Or was it about finding softness in strange places, warmth in the mundane, and kinship in the dirt? Tonight's open debate. Were ancient Peruvian food rituals acts of survival, of resistance, or of poetry? Some scholars argue they encoded knowledge. Others say they offered joy in hard times. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe this is the point where analysis lets go, and you simply rest. Your stomach is calm. Your breath is steady. The stars blink above. The spiral glows faint, and you, dear traveler, finally close your eyes. You don't need to remember everything. The potatoes will, and now the fire is ash. The last potato, painted, peeled, powdered in chalk, has found its place. And you, still lying in the soft grass, feel your breath match the pulse of the mountain. Slow, steady, ancient. No more stories tonight. But don't worry, they're not gone. They've simply curled up underground like sleeping roots waiting for rain. You may forget the names. You may forget which night the potatoes wore hats or danced or whispered their frost secrets. But your body remembers the warmth. Your breath remembers the rhythm. Your heart remembers the hush. You were never really learning history. You were remembering how to feel full. So tonight, if you dream of steam rising from an earth oven or a potato turning slowly in your palm like it knows something, you don't let it. Let it lead you home. Thank you for walking so gently through these 30 parts with me. Thank you for listening, not just with your ears, but with your curiosity, your calm, your patience. That's the story for tonight. May your dreams be filled with wonder and peace.